The firearms incident which occurred yesterday at Divots progresses, the Bermuda Police Service wishes to thank those members of the public who have assisted us thus far. Thank you for providing your statements or otherwise sharing information with detectives. It's greatly appreciated and really helps progress our investigations. We urge those individuals who have information about the incident but have not yet come forward to please do so. I cannot sufficiently stress how important it is for you to work with your police service to combat this kind of behavior, which puts all our lives at risk. On the question of risk, not long after yesterday's incident, individuals began sharing a video clip and an image of the off-duty police officer who attempted to apprehend the suspect. Sharing that video clip and image could quite possibly put the safety and well-being of both the officer and those other persons present at risk. What's more, it could negatively impact the investigation by revealing information which investigators would not want publicized at that time. I am grateful for the brave actions of the officer and how the recovery of the firearm will advance the investigation and, most importantly, significantly reduce opportunities for future harm in our community. I should also make the point that the preservation of life must always be the main objective. Thus, I wish to advise the public that should you find yourself faced with a similar situation, you should always take actions that maximize your safety and avoid confrontation with the perpetrator. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. So with regards to the video being circulated around social media, would you say that that video has helped or hindered the police's investigation into yesterday's matter at Divots?
So the circulation of the video is what it is. And my general advice to the public is that we don't want these images circulated. It has an impact on people who may be victims. It could compromise the safety of others and compromise investigations. That being said, without a doubt, the video generates additional interest, which may contribute to the investigation.
And how does the Bermuda Police Service feel about the actions of this off-duty police officer in that moment yesterday?
As I said in my statement, I'm grateful for the brave actions of the officer. My message to the community is to communicate to them that their safety and taking actions that maximize their safety should always be the main objective.
Moving on to former Commissioner Cordersley, if that's okay. People within the community have been saying that he was asked to leave the Bermuda Police Service. Do you have any response to that?
It would be inappropriate for me to comment on that.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Just so, thank you. Just so that the public understand, could you break down exactly why sharing that video or the identity of those persons in the video is harmful?
Right. So sometimes just sharing images like that can just be purely insensitive, right? You may have victims of crime involved. You may see individuals have, harm has befallen them, and we just don't want those graphic images circulated. But also there could be information that's about that scene that's only really known to the people who are present and or the perpetrators. And as the investigation progresses, that could be some of the clues or the fact that people know about it that helps investigators. So those are some of the reasons why we don't want those images shared. And also, sometimes issues are of identity, right? So if you've got a case that's progressing to the Supreme Court and identity becomes an issue, the fact that somebody's image has been just absolutely put on blast taints, potential witnesses, et cetera, around that.
I mean, for some people, the gang situation is not a big issue. However, this video, so would you say that there is some positives that could come out of this?
I think, in many what could be described immediately as an adverse circumstances, we might see some positive outcomes. I would be surprised that there are I say surprised, I would be stunned to find out that there are people who are not particularly bothered or perturbed by the community violence that we experience. And to your question in particular, I would definitely acknowledge the fact that later at stage, images such as these could help raise awareness. It could, just show the depravity, I think, of people and the willfulness, the desire to perpetrate some of these acts in the future. But right now, during the course of an investigation, pre-trial, it's just not particularly helpful.
Just one last question. There were two gentlemen that walked away from the scene whilst media were in place. Have there been any arrests or any information given to suggest that an arrest is imminent?
I am aware that the investigation is progressing well, and I am hopeful that arrests are going to be made fairly quickly.
Oh, thank you. Most of my questions have been asked. Afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bell.
The incident yesterday, are you able to say if we're looking into links with any other firearms incidents?
Right. So every time there is either a discharge of a firearm and shells are recovered or a firearm is recovered, we run it against a ballistic database. Kind of think of it like fingerprints for firearms. So we will match historical firearms incidents where evidence was recovered with current crimes or incidents. Yeah.
Got you. There looked to be a potential victim. Is there anything that you can tell us about who that could have been targeted? Staff guessed anything?
No, definitely not. No, not
And
appropriate
probably
at
the
this time.
same, but is it possible to say if the weapon jammed?
No, the investigation is ongoing. Not appropriate. to
Got
comment.
you, sir. So going back to what got leaked, that was some pretty sensitive information that got out there. Do we know how that happened, and is there any way of stopping that? Particularly somebody in a position of authority sent that out?
We need to be careful about the term position of authority because that could lead us to spaces that aren't necessarily or aren't the case. We have a fairly clear idea about how that happened. And I think the persons involved with that have expressed regret. So I don't think they have expressed regret.
You don't think that they have?
They have
Oh, they
expressed
have.
regret.
Sorry, didn't
Yeah,
you?
sorry.
Okay. Just quickly in some separate incidents, sir. We had the Robinson case in St. George's. Is there any belief that it was linked at all to there was a body discovered at Clearwater in April?
So in every single criminal investigation, we look to establish links, and that's something that is being actively looked at and certainly not being ruled out.
Thank you. On the horseshoe stabbing incident, just wanted to check if there had specifically been any arrests made in connection with that.
I can't confirm that at this moment in time.
Thanks. I guess what's your comment generally? We had a story on a police corruption case. It sounds crazy to ask, but what are your views on that? What's the impact it's had on
Right.
other members of the police force and morale?
Right. So let me be very clear. I and the Bermuda Police Service absolutely condemn wrongdoing on the part of any member of the Bermuda Police Service. We have very sort of active, robust mechanisms to deal with incidents where there's either criminality or misconduct. As a learning organization, sometimes people just need to learn about doing things differently. In this particular case, the officer has been convicted of an offense. They've resigned from the organization. That relationship with the Bermuda Police Service has ended. It's a reflection on all of us and not a reflection that we're happy about at all. We have a code of ethics and the standards of professional behavior that my expectation is that all officers uphold.
Appreciate you, sir. Thanks.
Just one last question, going back to the leak. The individual, will there be any action taken against them, any sort of penalties?
At this point in time, I'm unable to say. Yeah. And I think just for the avoidance of doubt, I would like to make it clear that it's not the police. Absolutely. Just if anybody was wondering or considering it, is not the police.
Any other questions, members of the media? Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and we will attempt to have copies of the commissioner's statement forwarded to you.
Thank you.
That officer resigned